Hi guys, welcome back to the Pageant Project. My next guest is Hayley Poe, who is an advocate, a passionate advocate, scholar, and future physician dedicated to protecting both human health and the environment. I should mention that she's also the current Miss Earth USA. We'll put that in there. She is a founder of the Microplastic Awareness Project, MAP, an initiative focused on educating communities about the harmful effects of microplastics and driving tangible change. Through MAP or MAP, Hayley organizes cleanups, promotes single-use plastic reduction, and champions legislation to safeguard our planet and its people. In Pennsylvania, Hayley spearheaded House Bill 1415, which once passed will require annual testing for PFAS, cancer-causing chemicals found in microplastics, in local watersheds. She is also collaborating with the US Department of Health and Human Services and the Environmental Protection Agency on policies that would require warning labels on all plastic bottles, informing consumers of their microplastic content and associated health risks. A proud Erie, Pennsylvania native, Hayley earned her Bachelor of Science in Biology with a pre-medical concentration and a minor in healthcare ethics from Gannon University. She plans to attend the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine to pursue her dream of becoming an endocrinologist with a vision to address environmental factors that impact human health. Her work blends science, service, and advocacy, proving that meaningful change starts with knowledge and the courage to act. Well, that's quite a lot, which is not surprising. Hayley, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Let's start with the Labor Day weekend. As I told you, you're in America. I'm not. I didn't have a long weekend. You guys did, but how was your long weekend?
It was great. I just got home from Miami, so I've been unpacking and getting things ready because I leave for New York Fashion Week in about a week, so I'm excited for that.
Can you describe to people what life has been like since you were crowned Miss Earth USA? Have you
Busy.
stopped? Yeah, this is the
I
other thing.
haven't.
We were talking about Pretty Down to Earth. As I told you, I binge watched the whole thing as research.
Yes.
It's the first time I've watched a reality TV show to research an interview. But the other thing I was going to mention, apart from freezing to death in a bath of cold milk, you guys look like you were all sleep deprived because there were so many shots. I don't think you were ever passed out. There was never a shot of you passed out. But have you had any chance to sleep?
Well, I'm a light sleeper, so whenever I was asleep and someone would pull out a phone camera, I would notice. So that's why you don't see the shots of me sleeping, but I did sleep in the car quite a bit. I think it's just that we were making so much social media content in between all of the work that we were doing and trying to get user generated footage as well to work with for the show because there is user generated content in the film as well. There's what the videographers did, and then there's what we took on our phones so you can see it from our perspective. We did have a lot of things going on in the background too while we were competing on Pretty Down to Earth. So a lot of jobs and a lot of prep.
Can you describe to people what it's like filming a reality TV show or any TV show? Because you were kind of alluding to this before I hit the record button. Things appear in a certain order on a TV show, but very often you don't film it in that order because let's say you have a certain situation or certain location and you want to get all of that stuff filmed at once. So you film it all at once, but then the viewer sees it spread out over episodes.
Yes.
So what was it like? I mean, people who've watched it will have a certain vision of it, but what was it like for you guys filming it?
So we would receive a call sheet every day for the next morning. So we would know what time we had to be ready, what time breakfast was available, what to wear, what to bring, what kind of hair and makeup to do. And then we would get everything ready to go, get up the next morning, get ready, get in the car, and they would drive us somewhere. And we had no idea what we were going to be doing. We just showed up ready and then found out what the challenges were on set. So there was really no way to prepare for this because we didn't know what was going to happen. And funny enough, we actually didn't know what was scored or how it was going to be scored until about a week after filming, I think. I got an email that had all of the rounds of competition with the score percentage breakdown and how deliberations were going to take place. And that was kind of when we found out. So we chose the top 12 in January, and then we didn't do the show until May, and then we found out who won in July. So it was a good 6 months of competing.
What was the time like between January and May then? So January, you make the top 12, but you don't get to compete until May. For me, that would have been agonizing. It would have been like, let's get this over with. I don't know. What was it like for yourself?
It definitely takes endurance to get through that sort of thing, because when you're not in person, the competition is on social media. And in general, I think social media has become a really big thing for title holders now, but it was even more important for the Pretty Down to Earth cast because you didn't see us in person for so long. So we had social media challenges, and we just kind of tried to maintain that visual and keep the audience interested until we filmed in May. And then slowly, as episodes came out, we were able to release behind the scenes footage of everything that had been going on. So there were a lot of secrets we had to keep. We didn't know too much when we got there, but it was definitely a process. And if they were to do the show again in any sort of format, I would say the biggest thing and my best advice for the next class of girls doing this would be set a posting schedule for your social media and make things ahead of time and let it auto post, because I think most of the burnout comes from doing social media content intensely for so long.
Okay, I have so many things I need to ask you about the show. So, firstly, it seemed like you won like almost all the gold medals. So I thought that was very
Oh,
selfish of you. Um, then there was as we discussed, this cold milk bath, which I mean, it looked amazing, but you guys, like, anytime you weren't in the bath, you were all wrapped up in blankets, and I was worried one of you was going like next week in Pretty Down to Earth, someone dies from hypothermia. So I'm surprised that didn't happen. Then there
yeah.
was beginning every episode with getting you to rummage around in a bucket of worms to find the golf ball. I'm like, well, okay. Can you run us through some of this? Like, what were your favorite parts? What were some of your least favorite parts?
That's a great question. I think everyone's least favorite thing about filming overall was the cold. So in between takes, they would throw blankets and jackets on us, and we would huddle up for warmth, and then they would take them and we would film. And every take in between, we'd have some blankets to get through it. Took a lot of mental strength to deal with that for a solid week, which sometimes it was chilly in the condo too. So we had space heaters and we would kind of huddle up and camp. It was really cute. But it was a process. I think my least favorite thing is probably the worms, just because I didn't have fun with that. It's okay, but like, it's funny because we filmed all of it at once. So we spent a few hours standing on the beach doing the team choosing. So we were called in a random order each time. And the third time you see us dig through the worm bucket, and the last one, and I believe it's episode 4, is actually the first time we dug through the bucket of worms. So the last time you see us do it was actually the hardest time for everyone because that was the first time. So I was called second to last, and I dug for probably 2 or 3 minutes because it was at the very bottom. There were 2 at the very bottom, and I found them, and I left the one sort of uncovered, hoping that Gia would see it, and she did not. So she dug around for like a minute and a half before she found it too. But we got through it.
I should mention also the other thing I saw, it was like raining all the time.
Yeah.
So on top of being like cold, you guys, it was raining, pouring down all the time.
Yeah.
So when you were filming, so you had to do all the worms at once.
Yes.
Were you given like directions, like pretend this is like the third or fourth time, or did you guys just go for it?
No, we just went for it because we didn't know what the order of the episodes would be. So we were just doing our thing, and they did their movie magic with it in the editing and got through it with that one. But I think it's interesting too because we filmed confessionals on the first night that we got there. I was the first one to film my confessional, and then they got through maybe half of them and then filmed the other half the next day. And we filmed coming into the house for the first time, which was actually not our first time being in the house because we had a few girls actually not get there until midnight or 1 in the morning because of flight delays. So
Right.
everybody kind of crashed, redid hair and makeup to look the way that it was the previous day. And then we filmed all running into the house together. So you can see us kind of discovering our baskets and all of our pink and green stuff for the teens challenges.
So
Yeah.
you had to make sure there weren't any continuity errors, like you appear in one
Yes.
scene in one t-shirt, and then
Yes.
another one you're in a different t-shirt.
Yeah.
What was it like, or what has it been like from since you filmed to now you're crowned and you're doing the more sort of traditional pageant queen things? Because I got to imagine like filming a reality TV. So you placed top 12 in January. That's kind of a normal pageant. But then you have like 5 months of waiting to film a reality TV show, which is
Yeah.
a completely different beast. And then you're crowned that, you win that, and now you're back to normal pageant mode. Do
Yeah.
you get like a sore neck from like all the whiplash from going from one mode to another, or has it been kind of seamless?
I needed a whole factory reset. I came home and I went to the gym and I listened to my music and I walked around on the beach and I processed for a moment and I planned for my next trip. And every time I come home, I'm planning for my next trip. I don't even put my suitcases away, they just stay open on the floor because it's just go, go, go. But I'm really grateful to be here, and it's such an honor to have this opportunity of the 12 of us that were chosen in such a unique format as well. So I'm excited to go to the Philippines. I'm just locked in. It's competition time.
Been competition time for you for a long time in that sense. I mean, from
Yeah.
January, you got to get ready for the reality TV shows.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to stay in good shape. You want to
Right.
know back to front your advocacy and all those things if you get asked. So, not being in competition mode for that long has to take some sort of toll.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's also closer to a year for me because I got my Miss Pennsylvania Earth title in July of last year. So when I was crowned Miss Earth USA, it was a week from a year of competing for the title for me. So now I'll compete on November 5th for the title of Miss Earth. So I have been in competition mode for quite some time. And I think at this point, I take the breaks where I can get them. And I think too, where self-care is concerned, going to the gym is self-care. Getting organized is self-care. Doing your laundry is self-care. So remembering to prioritize time to do the things that I need to do that will make me feel better at the end of the day, even if I don't feel like I have a ton of energy at the time, future me always appreciates it.
Getting organized is self-care. Most people do massage or spa days. Getting organized is your version of self-care. Are you a little bit type A, are you?
Yeah. They always made fun of me at filming because I'm very type A. But I think planning out the night before and having your outfits lined up when you're going to be gone for a trip for a week. Because for me as a title holder, it's usually like, okay, I have this media appearance and this media appearance. I've got these events. What am I wearing? I'm going to lay it out and color code it with all of my earrings and then get it packed. That takes me a few hours. But when I'm actually on the trip, I don't have anything to stress about. I can just go
Yeah.
from one thing to the next. So I do think organizing is self-care because your future self is a lot calmer because of it.
So you're not quite running around as much like a headless chicken as maybe some of your fellow contestants are. Where does that stem from? Because I know you have a background. I don't know if it was in professional dancing or dancing, but ballet. And I used to coach tennis, and I was working next to the rhythmic gymnasts, and they would be coming in every 5 or 6 days a week, even at the age of 11 or 12. And I was just like, I wish I could get the tennis players to come in 5 or 6 days a week, because by that time they'd be winning Wimbledon or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was always struck by how hard dancers and gymnasts in particular worked, how far they had to push themselves. Also, the fact that they seem to get yelled at all the time. But I think it engenders a very certain type of mindset where you do need to be prepared and you almost welcome discipline and you become a bit lost without it. Is that where that sort of whole, the organization in you came from?
100%. So I have 15 years of classical ballet training, and I spent the first 10 years of my life living in Alabama. And while I was there, I danced for a competition dance company. So from the time I was 3 years old to when I was about 9 or 10, we had competition class. And the way that that worked is everyone had to have the exact same hairstyle in the exact same shade of lipstick. Like they would say, go by Revlon number 102 because we had to be exactly the same and it had to be perfect. So we were expected from a very young age to be extremely organized and put together at all times and show up and do what we were told to do and be professional, even as children. And our parents had a lot of help in that backstage with us getting ready between numbers. But as I got older, the moms aren't allowed in the dressing rooms anymore. So you're responsible for taking care of your own stuff and packing your own bag and getting yourself ready for each number. I've had quite a few quick changes. So I'm very proud to say that I can do full glam in 25 minutes and I know how to pack myself for everything and kind of stay put together. So I love that I have that background because it has definitely helped me a lot where pageantry is concerned.
I mean, you said you started at the age of 3. I started
Yes.
classical violin at the age of 2.5. So I can sort of relate to that. And there's a lot of things that you learn in classical music. It's a discipline, and there's a lot of things you can't muck around, otherwise you get yelled at. But also at the same time, like if you haven't done it for a while, you realize how much you miss it, even though you may not have missed it at the time. I mean,
Yes.
are you still dancing all the time? I did see in Pretty Down to Earth. I'm a recent talent convert. To give you an idea, I hadn't seen a talent competition until I went over to America about 2 months ago.
Okay.
Then I witnessed talent for the first time, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing!" So I was hoping to watch your talent performance. I didn't get to see that. I saw you briefly dancing, but I mean, do you still get to dance as often as you would like?
So when I graduated from high school, I took a break from dance. And then for Miss Earth USA, I returned to ballet in January because we learned that we would be doing talent on the show. And I'm also performing talent at Miss Earth. So I started doing ballet classes again. And it was so fun to return to dance because, like you said, you kind of go through a withdrawal of missing your talent and being in class all the time. And it took about 2 months to get back on pointe shoes. And then by May, I was performing fully on pointe. So thank you to the Patterson School of Ballet for that one because no injuries, no issues. It was really fun.
What, how difficult is it to get back into, like, I'm going to say ballet shape, but I mean the kind of shape and form that you want? Because I know also ballerinas are all perfectionists. That's just like cliche at this stage.
Mhm.
But I've seen photos of ballerinas' feet, and it's let's just go, the bucket of worms you guys were digging through has nothing on what I saw. And then there's a joke that pageant girls have sore feet, but I'm like, you think pageant girls have sore feet? Look at ballerinas. And the thing is, with ballet, you need to make it look effortless. So even
Yes.
if you're bleeding through your pointe shoes, it's like, oh, I'm having elegance, and that's. But how difficult was it to get back into ballet shape?
The good news is I still train like a ballerina. So I go to the gym and I work like a ballerina, and I've maintained my flexibility this whole time. So I still had my full splits. There wasn't a lot to go back to. The main thing was a little bit of foot flexibility and then the tiny muscles in your feet that you use to do ballet on pointe. We had to train those pretty intensely for the first few months. So I did TheraBand exercises to get that going again safely because I have plantar fasciitis in both feet. So we had to prevent a flare up with that as well. So there was some physical therapy kind of going on at home in between lessons, and that kind of made it doable.
Do you have any issues then with wearing heels a whole day for a pageant? Because I've got to imagine that compared to ballet, that's fine.
No, surprisingly, the heels are fine. And I have really high arches, so the platforms and everything are not usually an issue for me. If anything, it'll be the blisters because I'm not too good about putting moleskin on my shoes right when I find out that I need it. So I have a few permanent scars from prelims and Pretty Down to Earth and all of my adventures, but they're battle scars.
The other question I have to ask, as a dancer, when you do opening number,
Yeah.
do you snooze through that? Because I've asked many, because there are two types of people. There are the professional dancers, and I've interviewed them, and they say, "Oh yeah, I get sent the video and I learn it in half an hour." And then there are people who have two left feet, like myself, who you can have it go through, be on stage and like 5, 6, 7, 8, and arm here, arm there, and you're punching someone and you're stepping on someone. Like for you doing opening number, it's got to be like a walk in the park, right?
Well, I am more of a ballet dancer. So I committed to just ballet when I was about 13 or 14. So whenever we're doing opening number and it's something a little bit more jazzy, like the one we did for Coronation, that is actually a little bit challenging for me because I have the ballerina stiff body and I don't like to move that fast. So I can pick up the choreography, but giving it more flair and more personality is the part where I kind of have to work.
That's interesting because coming from a classical violin background myself, it's like the difference between classical violin, like playing a Mozart or a Brahms, and then like trying to play a country sort of song, like A Devil
Yes.
Went Down to Georgia. And it's like technically it's not demanding, but it's demanding in a very different sense because you have to express yourself and it's all about emotion.
Right.
Whereas for me, when I was trained in the classical stuff, it was like, get it right. So when people say
Exactly.
show more emotion, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, tell me what I have to do. So that was a similar challenge for yourself.
Absolutely. It was funny because we learned the opening number and I pulled Joan aside from Devo Academy. He's our creative director. I was like, can you help me jazz this up just a little bit? And he gave me a couple things I could add to the choreography so that I would feel a little bit more like I was blending, because I don't think we had any other dancers. I know Taya does cheer, so I hang out with Taya quite a bit. She was my roommate, so we're pretty close, and she was next to me for the ending formation of opening numbers. So I was like, I gotta be able to pull next to Taya, who dances really big and really cool. So we need some more movement. So Joan helped me with that a little bit for the next day, and I'm very grateful for that.
It's interesting because I interviewed your predecessor, Bea, and she was saying that initially her walk, and she said this, not me. No, her walking coach said this. Her walk was tragic, and so she had to work a lot on that. So it's interesting. You guys all have your different things that you need to work on. She needed to work
Yes.
on her walk, and her coach did say it's gotten a lot better. Sounds like you needed to work on loosening up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was something we talked about for Pretty Down to Earth too. So funny enough, Tom Broder was my first phone call for any questions I had about preparation for that, because I was like, okay, we don't know what we're doing, but how can I make myself prepared for this, and how can I grow through the process? And one of the things he had me do was take acting lessons. And it wasn't to learn to be an actor, it was to get me out of my comfort zone and to express emotion in front of other people and not feel so embarrassed. So I went through that for a few weeks, and it really helped, because then I showed up at Pretty Down to Earth and I was comfortable kind of expressing myself with the girls as well. And I feel like I made more friends because I went through that process. So I think it's also a really transformative experience too. Like, I don't recognize the person I was before this, because the confidence is just so different.
Tell me more about the acting class, because I've often thought there are some different sort of exercises that are very sort of, at first you think, oh, that's weird, that's tangential. But then I think it makes a lot of sense. And I was just yesterday recording a video and I said, if there's a skill I want every pageant girl to learn, it's branding and marketing.
Oh,
Because it
yes.
doesn't matter how good your story is, if it dies on your lips, no one hears it. So what's the point? So I was like, branding and marketing, you guys need to know how to, the business side of things. And then what you say about acting to me like makes a lot of sense, particularly if you are a bit stiff in terms of emotion. I come from an Asian family, and so expressing emotion is not really something
Yeah.
typically that we do. You're supposed to be, very controlled and not even say things like "I love you" and things like that.
Mhm.
So for you going into acting class, what was it like? Because if it was me, particularly if it was like improv, it would be very uncomfortable.
Thank goodness it was online acting lessons with Scene Entertainment. And a friend of mine was also in the class. Her name is Izzy Sorensen. And the way that that particular acting class works is you pick a partner and then you choose a scene from something that's like a couple of minutes long. And then you
Right.
rehearse it, and then you do the scene on Zoom into your camera. So you can also see yourself during this process. So she and I did a scene from Jennifer's Body, which was very emotional, very silly at times. And we did that for a few weeks. So you just keep working on that one scene
Wow.
until it gets really good. And that was kind of what the process was like.
Are you able to cry on cue?
No, no, absolutely not. No, I'm not that good. Okay. We went there to loosen up. I'm not an actor by any means.
But I mean, if you kept working on the same scene like week
Yeah.
after week after week, what I mean, because the thing again, coming from my tennis coaching background, I used to do a lot of video analysis, and I was a tennis coach at an all-girls school. And not to be stereotypical, but whenever I would show a girl the first time she saw herself hitting a ball on camera, she would go like, "Oh my God, is that what I actually look like?" And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I didn't, this is not AI. I didn't generate this. What was it like? Like, because you get to see yourself acting. What was
Right.
that like going from okay, first week and like, wow, that's what I look like, that's what I sound like, to like the last take you guys did? Did you see a massive change?
A little bit. I think the main thing for me was I tried to do makeup that was a lot more fresh faced, because they had told us with Pretty Down to Earth that they wanted us to look more natural. So also in this process, I tried to do like a tinted moisturizer and a little bit of mascara for acting class, and then see myself in that way on camera, which also helped me with social media and doing a little bit less makeup for social media and being more relatable, which is also a big part of
Mm.
marketing. And then that really helped me when it came to Pretty Down to Earth, and then watching the show back and seeing myself very much fresh faced on TV. I'm glad I went through that process in that way. I think too, the emotion, learning to connect with a character takes a lot of practice. So that was the main thing, was learning to make her emotions mine and find ways to connect with her so that it came out on my face. because you don't want to overact, but you also don't want to underact.
Look, you know more about this than I do. There are many things that I could do. Acting is not one of them. I When I was watching it, I remember Danny Walker came on. They only sort of introduced her in like maybe the second to last or last episode, and
Mhm.
she was a kind of surprised she had been sort of the secret judge, and she
Yeah.
made a remark about you, and I do need to ask about this. She made a
Okay.
comment about your eyes, and she said that
Oh,
she loved your eyes, and that's
very
I have to
sweet.
say, the first time I saw your headshot, it's like her. I interviewed someone who just got onto Netflix, and her eyes are similar to yours. They're huge, but they're also
Thanks.
very expressive. Do
Yeah.
you get comments about this all the time, or is this news to you?
I get comments about that quite a bit, and one of my favorite things to do is model directly into a camera. So I shot with the Code Creatives back in December of last year, and one of the things that Franz does is slow motion modeling videos where he'll film from the side, like you're posing towards a camera, and then they'll get kind of a behind the scenes type of angle. And then there's some where you'll model directly into the camera. And when we did the Bloomstone photo shoot for the show, I probably sat there for 5 minutes and just modeled into the camera. And that's just my favorite thing to do. I like to connect with the camera. It's just easy for me. It's something I've always done. And I was actually a child model too. So my parents kind of recognized early on that I really liked cameras and applause. And they acted accordingly with dance class and putting me in front of photographers. So I was actually on a Walmart billboard when I was a kid, and I modeled for Gymboree and some things, and it's kind of always been my thing.
It sounds like you were genetically manufactured to become a pageant queen, like all the stars aligned.
That's even funnier because my mom is a former too. So I was raised by someone who held state titles back in her day, and she kind of knew how to dress me and she helped coach me for my first pageant. And in a way, I think she accidentally raised me to be like a pageant girl because pageant girls look up to other pageant girls. It's about being well-rounded and making an impact in everything that you do. And so I've always kind of been like that, and that's what I wanted to achieve with my life. So yeah, I did kind of hit the lottery on that one.
Is there any secret to having giant eyes? Is there anything that you can do to, like, you go to the gym to get bigger guns? Is there anything that you can do workout wise to get bigger eyes?
No, that one comes with the body, I'm afraid.
That's too bad. I mean, you mentioned that you love sort of working with the camera. So when you because there are a lot of people who, again, comes down to the branding and marketing thing. As a pageant girl, I think you need to learn to love working with the camera. And I think people can tell the difference between someone who enjoys it and someone who feels like they have to do it.
Right.
When you're staring into the camera, I often think about this. Like, are you thinking anything? Like, what's going through your head when you're staring to the camera? Are you thinking that's a person? Are you just thinking, oh my God, I'm so hungry? Like, what's running through your head when you're doing that sort of modeling?
I just lock in. I don't know what it is. That's just my in my element sort of moment. I think sometimes the word serve goes through my head where I'm like, oh, we're gonna go to this angle and we're gonna serve really hard into the camera this way. But because I come from a dance background, I kind of try to keep the movements really fluid. So I'm thinking about my next pose in my next face because those subtle changes you can make with your expression, especially in a slow motion video, make a huge difference in the overall look because you have your straight face, you have your sultry face, and you have your smile, but there's also lots of faces in between those. And a lot of the time, I'll see girls go from like a big smile to just a straight face or a sultry, and you have to have that transition where it flows and it's soft.
How many different faces are there?
There's definitely a statistic on that, but I think there's a couple thousand human expressions that you can make just with the tiny muscles in your face and like your micro expressions. But it's complicated for sure.
When I was going to ask something about the modeling, but I think you mentioned the micro expression. So I think we'll take a smooth segue onto microplastics because micro in both words. And
Yeah,
again, both my parents are doctors, and my brother's also a doctor. I'm the only one who
cool.
I got the marks to be a doctor, and I decided I'm not doing that because I'm going to do something else.
That's
But
fair.
your advocacy is around microplastics.
Yes.
You want to go and become into endocrinology. I was asking my mum, what's an endocrinologist? And I kind of understand it now. I was talking to
Yes.
ChatGPT this morning, and I understand, okay, it's the gland. And then it talked about hormones. I went, okay, because hormones regulate everything that goes on in the body. And if they go out of whack, you can have a lot of problems in everything systemically. And then I found out that microplastics is not just a microplastics, is that they have a lot of toxins with them and they can mimic or disrupt the endocrine system. But let me start with a broader question. What got you interested in perhaps becoming an endocrinologist and microplastics in particular? Because I feel, and I could be wrong, but I feel like there's a story, there's a reason you are so passionate about this. It's not just, oh, I need an advocacy, I'll pick this one. So what got you into this sort of advocacy to begin with?
I have polycystic ovary syndrome, and it took me 7 years to receive a diagnosis for that. And at the end of it, my lab showed that I either had PCOS or a brain tumor in the pituitary gland. And so they retested me, and it turned out that I did have PCOS, thank goodness. But it was the sort of thing where I looked back on the experience and I thought they could have missed a brain tumor for that long. And so many doctors never getting answers until I walked in there and essentially said, I'm not leaving until you order these labs specifically. And they finally did order the test, and I got the answer that I knew was the answer because I had done enough research and had the experience in my own body that I knew that I had PCOS. And I decided that I wanted to become a doctor so that no one else would have to go through the experience that I had, because it should never take that long to get a diagnosis for anything. And it took me seeing an endocrinologist to address my PCOS because it is the most common endocrine disorder in women. So that was kind of my segue into medicine. And then while I was in college and I was learning more about environmental science as well, because half of my concentration in my biology degree is in marine biology, I was looking at the environmental impact on our health because I also want to be an osteopathic physician. So holistic medicine overall, looking at lifestyle, looking at the environment. I noticed that there were so many things that were impacting our health, not just for PCOS, but for overall health. And microplastics are one of those things.
In your estimation, why did it take 7 years to get diagnosed? And I say this, as I said, coming from a family of doctors, I know very often they're overworked. I mean, yes, a lot of people think they get paid very well, and certainly they do, but they don't understand how many hours a doctor works. So, like my mum regularly was out the door at like 5 or 6 in the morning, wasn't coming back to 6 or 7 at night, and I think that part goes unappreciated. But she's in the Australian medical system. The American
Yes.
one is quite different.
Yes.
Why did they miss it for 7 years?
I think on the one side, you do have the overworked component of medicine. And then another thing about PCOS is that there really isn't a cure for it. So, in a way, it's sort of like ovarian diabetes or ovarian prediabetes. So, you have to address your carbohydrate intake. And it's something that you kind of have to attack from a nutrition and lifestyle perspective. So, when you get a diagnosis, they might tell you to go on the Mediterranean diet, or they might
Mm.
refer you to a nutritionist. So it's not the sort of thing that we have a treatment plan for. So I think people are a little bit shy to get a diagnosis for PCOS or to test for it because, in a tangible sense, there's not much they can really do at the end of the day.
You mentioned it's like diabetes, but then all I can think of is you scoffing down that Milano in your in your. So I mean, do you have to for context go watch Haley's vlog? I think it's the
Oh my
most
goodness.
recent one. Yeah, yeah, where you're with Nikki, and then you just, as I
Yes,
mentioned,
you're
Nikki's very
calling me out
daintily
here.
biting, and you're just swallowing the whole. Do you normally eat like that?
No. No, I don't. I try to do high protein, low carb with high fiber. That's my
Okay,
go-to. Yeah.
but every now and then indulging in a Milano.
Yeah.
What was it? A what Milano?
It was a mint chocolate Milano, but the dark chocolate ones are also really good if you need a referral. Those ones are really widely accepted.
You really do sound like a doctor now. You're giving me referral to dark chocolate is a very adult taste, so I will happily go to dark chocolate. I'm not so much of a fan of the peppermint one, or the mint one.
Understandable.
I was looking up. Well, let's start with endocrinology. Can you explain to people, even to me, pretend like I'm a dumb 5-year-old child?
Sure.
What is it? What does an endocrinologist do? Like, what is the endocrine system first up?
So the endocrine system is the glands in your body that secrete hormones that control everything else happening. So when there's something wrong with the glands in your body, everything else tends to go awry because those hormones affect every aspect of your life. So one of the main things with PCOS is the insulin resistance. So you'll see weight gain and you'll see infertility issues in women who have PCOS, and it's from carbohydrate metabolism. So we have to address that to address PCOS. There are other endocrine disorders like thyroid disorders.
Mm.
Diabetes is also an endocrine disorder. So anyone who has type 1 or type 2 diabetes is also probably seeing an endocrinologist regularly to handle that. But it's just the regulation of all of your hormones.
And then osteopathy. I hope I'm
Yes,
pronouncing that
you
correctly.
did.
Now, I looked that up. In Australia, you can't actually become a doctor of osteopathic medicine, but in America, you can. And you mentioned that, and I hope I get this right, it's a more holistic take rather
Yes.
than just diagnosed with drugs, give an antibiotic. It's looking
Yes.
at things like, you mentioned nutrition. I also saw, and I don't know if this is correct, Haley, but looking at things like movement and almost
Yes.
manual adjustment and things like that. And I think it makes a lot of sense if you have something like, because it always struck me how little formal knowledge doctors have about nutrition. That was something that really stuck with me. It's like, hang on, if you're advising someone on how to get healthy, but you don't know anything about nutrition, to me, that just seems like a ginormous, that's a technical term, ginormous gap in what you're doing, because, you can see people when they're sick and yes, you can help them. But if they then go back and they're eating pizza rolls and microwave burgers all the time, it's like trying to plug a hole in a dam with your finger, and meanwhile the whole thing's going to fall
Yes.
on top of you. So can you tell me more about osteopathic medicine?
Absolutely. So we have osteopathic medicine and allopathic medicine. Osteopathic physicians are DOs or doctors of osteopathic medicine. Allopathic doctors are MDs or just medical doctors. They do the exact same job at the end of the day. They both go to medical school and you can get both degrees in the USA for sure. So the main difference is that osteopathic physicians have a more holistic approach. So they might look at your job or your lifestyle when they're diagnosing you with something or finding a treatment plan. They may also be less likely to recommend surgery for something and try alternate options first. And then the main difference is that they also do osteopathic muscle manipulation, which is a little bit similar to chiropractic medicine. So it's just addressing ways that your body can heal itself. So one of the presidents of the medical school that I was accepted to, I believe she's the provost currently, first female provost of an osteopathic medical school. She's quite fabulous. She was actually an acupuncturist before she went to medical school. So she has a little bit of a different background in that as well. But then in allopathic medicine, you'll see the more traditional medicine style, exactly what you would think, diagnosis, treatment plan, there you go. So osteopathic physicians can do everything that allopathic physicians do. You just kind of choose the philosophy that sits best with you. And for me, I think that medicine is so much more than just a treatment plan. I think it's your entire lifestyle, the job that you have, the life that you live. And there are so many choices you can make that can address health issues outside of me writing a prescription.
That's fascinating, because I want to ask, so in your mind, if a patient comes to see you, I don't even know if you call them patients or clients, but when someone comes to have a coaching session with me as a life coach,
Yes.
it's always a bit of a problem solving thing at first. Like, you just start talking to the person. You don't say, okay, here's what you're going to do, and here's your problem, and here's how you fix it. You need to have a conversation, build rapport, and it's like piecing together a puzzle, and every single person is different. We all have different triggers, we all have different flaws, we all have different strengths. So in your mind, when someone comes to see you as the future doctor, what are you sitting down? It's almost like a problem solver, like, how can I help this person have a better life, rather than let me fix you?
Yes. That's more so my mentality because I think we have to look at everything. If someone comes in and they're complaining of a certain illness, we can treat that, but we also need to look at why they got sick in the first place. Do you have
Yeah.
major issues with stress? How is your nutrition? What is your lifestyle like? Because you're going to continue to get sick until we address those lifestyle issues that are making you sick as well. Especially when we're talking about something that's affected by your nutrition, like PCOS and like microplastics as well, because there are ways that you can cut your microplastic consumption.
Can you tell me what your attitude is in general to mental health? And then we'll go to the microplastics. And I ask this again because I often get told by both like my mum and my brother, who are still practicing general practitioners, how many times patients will come in and it's really about mental health. These people are, yes, there's a medical issue, but they're also very lonely, or they're going through a divorce, or someone's trying to take their money, and there's all these like really heart-wrenching stories. So
Yeah.
in terms of your focus with mental health, yes, you want to become a doctor, which is a kind of like a physical health, but mental health weaves through all of it, because I think very often, like if someone's overeating, there's a reason for it, and very often
Right.
it's rooted in the mental health side of things. And then you being, the former ballerina, we often talk about the stress that professional dancers go through. And now, as a pageant contestant, you've been competing for over a year, constant competition mode. So I can't even imagine what levels of stress there are, early mornings, late nights. So what is your general approach or attitude to mental health been, and has it changed over the years?
I think initially when I first started competing, there was a lot of pressure to show up perfect all the time and to never let anyone see me sweat. And I think I didn't connect as much with the other contestants or with the organization because I didn't want to express those feelings and I kept a lot in. Competing for Miss Earth USA, we have the Still She Rose Wellness Foundation, which is specifically for pageant girls and pageant mental health. And then we also have a partnership with BetterHelp. So it was very different being in an organization that does have that focus on mental health too, because it's something that we can talk about. And there wasn't so much pressure to be perfect all the time. I did witness a lot of meltdowns in the condo at Pretty Down to Earth during filming because it is so much stress. And I think it's important that we're able to be there for each other as a community. Where medicine is concerned, I think one of the biggest things is not just handling the issue that a patient came in with that day. If someone needs a referral to a nutritionist or a psychologist or a counselor, you have to recognize where you can be helpful. And it might not always be writing a prescription. I might not always be the right person to help someone with a specific thing.
How good are you at listening?
Pretty good, I think. You never
I
know.
just I think that's a huge skill when it comes
Yeah,
to like just being a good human being in general, but whether it
absolutely.
comes to mental health or being a doctor and diagnosing correctly, there's a lot of people who hear, and I talked about this with Tom, there's a lot of people who hear, but they don't necessarily listen. And
Yes.
I'm just interested if that's a skill that you've had to work on, or whether that's a skill that's come naturally to you, because you mentioned you're a perfectionist and all these, they tend to spend a lot of time in your head overthinking. But I think the flip side of it is that you also become a very good listener. So is listening something that has come naturally to yourself?
Yes, I was very quiet as a child. I was definitely more of a listener, more of a let me step back and see what other people are doing and how
Yeah.
I can be helpful and where I fit in this situation. So it was actually more finding my voice that was challenging for me because the listening component came very naturally.
Yeah. All right. So talk to us about microplastics. So again, I was having a conversation with my good friend ChatGPT this morning, and I got the definition of what microplastics were. But in
Yes.
your own words, what are microplastics, and I guess why should people care?
Microplastics are tiny pieces of plastic. So when plastic breaks down or it's chopped into smaller pieces, it breaks down even further and then it ends up in our water, in our air, in our food. They're quite literally everywhere all of the time. And then they get into our bodies and they release other chemicals that disrupt our hormones. So you should care because it impacts the environment and it impacts your health. So we have to remove them from the environment in order to remove them from our bodies. And to do that, we have to hold corporations accountable for their environmental impact.
Okay, so how do we go about doing this? Because it sounds good. And then you have giant corporations who basically have a for-profit motive. And so if plastics are the cheapest way of doing things, or people keep buying plastic, they'll say, well, our consumers want it, so we're going to give them what they want. So how do we go about affecting change when there's that sort of profit motive over the top of it?
Extended producer responsibility laws. So we have to legislate laws that hold corporations accountable for their environmental impact. So if they produce something that contains plastic, they're also responsible for cleaning it up and disposing of it afterwards or recycling it. So they're not allowed to create something that then just sits in the world and pollutes our environment. And that also creates an incentive to create more sustainable packaging for items because almost everything you buy comes in some form of of plastic, and there are other sustainable alternatives that are better for the planet and better for our health. So there are tax incentives as well for businesses that use sustainable packaging, and I would like to see more of that too, because in any way we can encourage corporations and businesses to do more sustainable things, that's good. And then, of course, our individual actions, we can do cleanups, we can watch our own plastic consumption. So if there's an item that comes in plastic and an item that doesn't come in plastic, and they are in most ways the same, buy the one that doesn't come in plastic. It's about making those choices for yourself.
Let me ask you about legislation, and forgive me because I don't know that much about how
That's okay.
legislation works in America.
Yeah.
But from my basic understanding, there are a lot of things that the American people as a majority want.
Yes.
Healthcare is one of them. And
Yes.
then it boggles my mind how you can have a political system, for want
Mm-hmm.
of a better word, where the majority of the populace wants something, but because of the way the system is set up, it just never happens, and also looks, unfortunately, like it will never happen, because what happens is the lobby groups, they have all this money. So whether you're talking about pharmaceuticals or, big, or like whether it's gun lobbies and things like that, they have all this money, and to run for office costs a lot of money. So they do the whole, okay, we'll pay for you for your campaign, but then you owe us. So when it comes to legislation that most people want, these people find a way of saying, oh, no, we don't want that, or we need to revise it, and then it never gets done. And again, healthcare comes to mind. So in terms of legislation, how are how are we able to make sure the legislation that seems to make so much sense, how are we able to make sure that it goes through?
You have to vote for the things that you are most passionate about. So the way that I've interacted with representatives, I schedule a meeting, I walk in there, and I present ideas for bills that I want to see introduced. And no one has told me no thus far. It's the sort of thing where you have to go in there prepared with what you want to say and what you want to see, and present options so that they can choose one. Because if you
Mm,
go in with one idea, it's a lot harder to get a yes. And
yeah,
then meeting other representatives through that and encouraging them to also support that legislation in its process. It might be years before House Bill 1415 is ever passed, but it's in the process now. So then we have to vote for people who would support having it
yeah,
passed, who would vote to allow it to go through. So I think a lot of the time we end up in a stalemate situation where there's a lot of support for new legislation, but it doesn't quite get through because there's
yeah.
not enough support, just by a few people even, a lot of the time.
What was the process of getting that? Was it House Bill 1415? Like, what was how does that happen? Because I don't think that can happen in the same way in Australia. So I'm fascinated by how does it begin? Like, what do you have to do? What's the work you have to do? And then, frankly, what's it like going in to meet with someone? You said you're someone who had to find her voice. So I mean, there's got to be kind of like a wake me up moment, because you've gone from, okay, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to sit here and be the perfect ballerina, to I'm trying to affect a wide ranging change in our community. But what's the process like?
First, you have to call or email and schedule a meeting. And I will say the pageant title certainly helps in getting people to say yes.
Yep.
That is the most important thing for title holders, I think, is learning to use the title in the most effective way to make a difference. And for me, I wanted to use my crown and sash to get in those legislative doors. So once you get the meeting scheduled, you walk in there. They're always very polite. It's always a good experience. I've enjoyed working with every person I've met on the legislative side, and we just sit down and have a conversation. And I talk with them about my platform and what I'm doing as an advocate and what I would like to see done and where there are gaps in the legislation to protect our health. And I usually have a little, not a notebook, but one of those foldables. You know what I'm talking about,
Mhm,
with the lined
mhm.
paper?
Yep.
And I'll have my ideas and how they would work, and I pitch those. And usually they say yes. And then they'll take it to their law writers and they will write up a
Mhm.
bill. And I actually had someone ask me to approve one at one point, and that was pretty cool. They sent me a draft of it and said, "What do you think?" Which was really interesting. So I think we have to remember that our politicians and our representatives are not experts in these fields. I go to school with someone who helped have the Microbeads Free Water Act passed in 2015. So her research is in biochemistry and microplastics. And you just have to present the research and what would be most effective, and then people will help. But if they don't know there's a problem, they can't do anything about it.
is there a back and forth when you go to see a representative or someone you're working with? So you said that you go there and you're obviously prepared and you do your pitch, but do they ever have like questions and say, okay, yes,
Oh,
that's a great
certainly.
idea, but this is something that you have to be aware of, and then you come back and go, okay, so is it just like a one and done deal? You have one meeting, or is it like an ongoing conversation?
It's a back and forth. Usually, if it's an ongoing conversation, it's because they want to introduce legislation, and then we'll work on editing and what the implementation
Right.
process would look like, and kind of finding the best way to roll it out from a marketing perspective, too, so that there's support for the bill because they have
Yeah.
to get other representatives on board for it to be voted in or for it to go to committee.
And how long is a bill? Like, what are we talking? Is it like 5,000 pages? Is it a paragraph?
Well, House Bill 1415 is one page, just
Right.
one page. Yeah, it really depends on the bill.
Right. And what's the wording? I don't know if you've seen it, or like I don't know if you wrote it yourself. But what's the kind of wording on it like? What does it say?
It's in legalese a little
Right.
bit, but it's on a level where you can still understand it if you just take a couple of extra minutes to read through it. And usually it comes with a sponsorship letter as well. So Representative Mary Isaacson from Pennsylvania in the House of Representatives introduced House Bill 1415, and there's a sponsorship letter from her explaining what the bill is for and why it's important in layman's terms. So we can present that sponsorship letter to any representative and ask them to vote for House Bill 1415 using her advocacy as well. So that comes from my conversations with her and what we ultimately
Right.
decided to do. And then we can sort of market it and get people on board. And then the other thing is getting people to call their representatives and asking them to support legislation is
Hmm.
also helpful.
So it's really like a grassroots movement then. It
Oh,
starts
yeah.
with you. See, because I've always been a bit naive to the way it could work, because a lot of people have these really grand ideas and I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, but how are you actually going to put it into motion? So what surprises me is how grassroots it is. So you start with a phone call, you
Yeah.
talk to one person,
Yeah.
but then you almost have to get a grassroots movement happening so that other people who are passionate about and believe the same thing call their representatives, and you begin, it's almost like going into politics yourself, I guess it
Certainly.
is.
Yes, I've really enjoyed this process. It's been a solid learning process for me because I was interested in politics before, and now getting to work in those spaces is really fun for me. I
Yeah.
think the thing people don't realize is that you don't have to be part of a big legislative
Mm.
organization to make a
Yeah.
difference. One person making a phone call is progress because you can take it so far if you're willing to put the work in and really follow it and follow up with those representatives, because sometimes it doesn't take one phone call or one email. Sometimes it takes 15. And then
Yeah.
eventually, once you get the meeting, if you sell it well enough and they respect what you're saying, you can take it really far. It's just how you present yourself once you get there. And I think pageant girls are uniquely adapted
Yeah.
to advocate in a really effective way, that they're taken seriously, even though I'm not an expert on microplastics. I have a bachelor's degree in biology, and I'm a pageant girl, and I'm a dancer, and I'm 22 years old, but they're willing to listen to me on this topic because of the way I speak about it.
When, and this is dumb question number 27 for the day, but when does it get voted on? Does it get voted on once and that's it? Is it like an ongoing process?
That's a really interesting question because it could be anything. Right now, it's in committee. So
Okay.
it'll be edited, they'll discuss it, they'll vote for it, and it'll go through a few different iterations. And then eventually, they'll either discard it or they'll pass
Mhm.
it so that it can be voted on by the House of Representatives. And if they pass it, it'll go into the Senate. And then if they pass it, the governor of Pennsylvania will sign it into law. Let's say it doesn't pass in the House of Representatives, they can send it back to committee and it can be edited some more, and then we
Yeah.
start the process all over again.
Okay. So roughly what timeline, if it's at all possible, like how long does this process take?
I ask this question all the time, and unfortunately, there isn't an answer. But I know that my part in this process is to have legislation introduced and then to get
Okay.
people on my team for it. So that's as far as I can go. And then it's up to representatives to do their part in
Yeah.
editing it and getting it through. So my job is more on the marketing side for legislation
Yeah.
to get something introduced and then get people on board.
What would it feel like? I mean, I ask pageant girls all the time, like, what was it like to be crowned? And that's one thing. What would it be like for yourself if that legislation, that bill gets passed and signed into legislation?
My ultimate goal with my platform was to do something that would outlast both my time as Miss Earth USA or as Miss
Mm,
Pennsylvania Earth, and in general, my time in pageantry too. So it would mean the world to me to have it on paper and know that House Bill 1415 is officially a law because one pageant girl took the time to walk
mm.
in there and get it done. And I think that just goes to show what an impact we can really make in this industry because there's truly so much you can do with a platform. It doesn't just have to be routine things. You can take it really far if you try.
The fact that you've laid it out there clearly, because until my conversation with you, I didn't really understand how the whole system worked. And a lot of people talk a good game, but it's like nothing actually ever happened. It's like, oh, I have a Instagram hashtag. I'm like, that's great. But once you're done with pageantry, like it's gone, or they start up a separate Instagram account. I'm like, okay, that's great, but what are you actually doing to affect change?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: How do you cut? How do you, if you do, how do you compartmentalize your life? So like many other high level pageant queens, right? You have all these different facets of yourself. So you've finished up your study for now, and then you want to go back to being a doctor. You used to be in professional dancing, from the age of 3. It wasn't just a one-time thing. It was like years of your life, like more than half of your life at this stage, I'm imagining. And then obviously you got the pageant side of things, and Miss Earth is one of the biggest pageants in the world. And then you're introducing legislation here. And then at some time, probably you have to take time for yourself and actually have a life. I'm just curious, do you compartmentalize it in your brain such that, okay, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this? Or is there like a strand that weaves through the whole thing? And it's like, okay, if I win, for example, you kind of mentioned, like, if I win a pageant, one of the best things is that people in the legislative sense anyway will take me seriously. Not that I'm
Yeah,
saying you should have to have a title before people take you seriously,
of course.
but it does help, doesn't it? So I'm just curious, do you compartmentalize where you're like, okay, here's what I'm doing today, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm doing? Or is there like this overall overarching strategic plan?
I have a tendency to get ahead of myself. So I have to slow down and take it day by day, especially when it comes to preparing for Miss Earth, because there's so many things I have to do and there's no schedule for Miss Earth. You just kind of find out when you're there what you're going to be doing each day, which is very similar to Pretty Down to Earth. So it's
Yep.
the sort of thing where the work I do behind the scenes, whether it's in dance class or doing interviews like this one, or working on my platform and advocating for legislation, all of those things have prepared me for what I have to do next. And then as far as keeping it together on a given day, I have a Google Calendar. It's color coded. I know exactly where I'm supposed to be on a given day. And I make a list of tasks for myself. So it's like email representative, and then it'll say what I'm looking for. And I just kind of keep everything going fluidly at the same time. So I have a solid to do list every day as Miss Earth USA, and that's what I work on. And it's not always glamorous. Sometimes it's in my pajamas with no makeup on, making phone calls and sending emails, and that's a really important day of work too. So there's the glamorous side, and then there's the I'm at my desk, I've got my coffee, and I'm gonna be here for the next 6 hours, you know.
Coffee is important. And what my understanding is that Pennsylvania has very good coffee. At least that's what I've been told. I don't know. Does Pennsylvania have great coffee?
I've not heard anything about that actually, but we do have Tim Hortons, which is a Canadian chain, and I love a good mocha iced cap from Tim Hortons. I like an iced coffee, so that'll do it for
It,
me.
it does sound nice. Can you give us an idea? What do you do when it just I'm sure you're always under control and you never have a meltdown, but hypothetically, if you ever got a bit too stressed or it
Okay,
gets a bit too much, what do you do to unwind?
I go to the gym. I am an avid runner, and that is how I get my feelings out. I'll go to Spotify and search running playlist, like 180 beats per minute, and I will just gun it on the treadmill. I ran at, I think 7.5 was the speed, or 8 today. I was doing sprints. I was just getting my feelings out earlier. So that's just my thing. I get up in the morning, I get ready, and I go to the gym, and I start my day that way, and that puts us on the right track.
So it's running specifically because you mentioned the
Oh, yeah.
gym several times,
Yeah.
and I hate running, like jogging anyway, because I get
Yeah.
so bored. I got diagnosed with ADHD last year, and when I'm jogging, I just get so bored. But it doesn't sound like you're jogging. It sounds like you're punishing the treadmill.
Well, I get a good playlist going and I'll watch the clock. So I like to time myself. I got down to a 6-minute mile for Pretty Down to Earth because I was afraid they were going to make us race at something. So I was like, we're going to get really good at this. And I love to run anyway. So this will be my superpower, which I don't know if you remember from the fitness episode, but I did pull the kayak through a 42-degree freezing lake, and my running definitely paid off. But I'll go in there and for as long as I can handle it, and it makes me feel better. The adrenaline rush is good.
I ask you how to unwind, not how do you punish yourself. You sound like you're going in there, you're running until you're coughing up blood. I don't so much remember you pulling the kayak. What I remember is you remarking that Gia had your back when you got out. So before you died from hypothermia, she
Yes.
came and wrapped a blanket around you. That's what I remember.
That's what friends are for.
So you go to the gym and you run until you cough up blood, and that's how you start your day.
No, because once you get the runner's high and the adrenaline going, afterwards you feel so calm. It helps. So by 12 p.m. every day, I've been to the gym and I've had my run and I've lifted my weights and I'm calm, which also, fun fact for ADHD, because me too, running will kind of help. Like if you tire yourself out a little bit, it can help your
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah, but that's why people talk about doing marathons, and I'm like, I used to think I should want to do a marathon because that's like, oh, everyone should like climb Mount Everest. And then I started thinking about it, it's like, I hate running. I get super bored. So you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. Sprinting I can do because it's
Yeah.
just like I just have a focused time, and I need to get from here to there as fast as possible. And a 6-minute mile, that's not a jog.
No. So the thing with sprints, I love to sprint too. And what I'll do is I'll run at a comfortable pace for 5 minutes and then I will sprint for 30 seconds and then I'll increase the speed and sprint for another 30 seconds. So I'll make it to level 10 on the treadmill doing my sprints and I'll sustain it as long as I can and then I'll go back down to a reasonable level. So if you're someone who doesn't love running because you get bored, changing the speed or changing the incline can help because you're constantly adapting and it's like a mental game to keep yourself going.
You realize this is actually how sprinters train, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, are you able to run on a road or is it always on a
Yes.
treadmill?
One of my favorite places to run is Presque Isle State Park. It's just a little bit harder to control your pacing in a
Yeah.
real world situation. So my 6-minute mile time is actually in person. I time myself in
Oh, wow.
person, not on a treadmill. So when I run at Presque Isle, I'll go 6 or 7 miles and go for distance, and then I'll come home. And then there's also a trail near my house that's exactly a half a mile. So I know how many laps I need to do on that trail to get a mile, and then I'll set my timer and I have a little thing where I attach my phone to my arm so I can just flip my arm up and see how long I've been running. And then I push myself based on that and I count my miles.
You say 6 or 7 miles.
I press
That's
out,
how much.
yes. The
And
farthest I've ever gone is 10 miles. And no stops. It's easier if you don't stop actually, because your cardiovascular system and your respiratory system get used to fueling you a certain way. So it's better if you don't stop.
Yeah, I get the theory behind it, but not all of us are up. The only thing I know about running is the best thing to do is if you want to run 10 miles, run in a straight line away from your home for 5 miles, because then you can't stop because otherwise you can't get back. That's how I logic myself with runs. But it sounds like you have this all down to very, very strategic, the whole thing. You've worked it all out.
Presque Isle is not straight. So what I'll do is I'll mark where my car is on the map and then I'll run a certain distance from it and then I have to run back that distance. So I do a similar thing. But if I'm really trying to train time, I'll know exactly where I am in that mile. And then that helps me kind of push a little bit harder because if I feel like I'm ready to give up, I can go, okay, well, I have like a quarter of a mile left. It's fine.
Okay, all right. I do love how you strategize the whole thing out. I mean,
Yeah.
you mentioned pretty down to and pulling the kayak. Were there? I don't remember. Were there any physical? That was one day. There was that challenge.
Yes.
What? Because you didn't know what was going to happen. So what sort of
Right.
other things were you getting prepared for? Were you getting prepared for? Oh, they're going to make us walk over broken glass. They're going to throw us out of plane. Like, how do you get prepared for it?
In January, they asked us what our biggest fears were in our first confessional, and maybe
Oh,
half of
that's no.
us said heights. No, why did we tell the truth? That is
I
the
would have
real
lied.
question.
I would have
I
lied.
know,
I'm
right?
really scared of warm, lovely baths in front of a lovely roaring fire. It terrifies me.
Yeah. So they told us they were definitely going to have a heights challenge. So I went rock climbing because I'm afraid of heights. So I was like, I'm going to get this out of my system and just go do some rock climbing. And I actually had a fun time with it. And I was like, okay, this is going to be fine because they said they weren't going to have us jump out of a plane because you do have the risk of if someone gets so scared they have a heart attack. It's a massive liability. So there were actually no heights challenges on Pretty Down to Earth, but I did get it out of my system. So I am quite proud of that.
Have you ever seen those photos of people? I don't remember where it is, but it's a really tall skyscraper,
Yeah.
and then there's a
Oh,
balcony, and the floor is made completely of glass, and then they're lying down, and they take a photo of it. Like, I'm not scared of heights beyond the normal, healthy fear. I think I
yeah,
like to. I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of falling. Well, I'm afraid of landing after the fall. But have you
exactly.
ever seen that? Like, they're lying down, and it's like below them, it's like 300 feet.
Adrian, I've been in one. So my mom
And
is
you
a
said you're
pilot.
afraid of heights. Are you sure?
Yes, I'm
Afraid
sure.
means you don't like it. It doesn't mean you do like it.
You got to hear this, okay? So, my mom has her pilot's license. She was a pilot for a long time. It's not active anymore, but never for commercial airlines, just like little baby planes. She has no issues with heights whatsoever. And she took me to, I believe it's the Willis Tower in Chicago, and it has one of those glass platforms. She was like, "We got to get the picture. You got to get in here." I think, 13 or 14 when I tell you I crawled into that little glass box because I had to be touching the floor to get through it. The picture, she's standing trying to like smile and make it look normal, and I'm like crouched on the ground thinking I'm gonna die.
I mean, you talked about how you love modeling and working with the camera. Do you think at this stage you would be able to lie down on a platform like that and still stare into the camera? See, that sounds like a challenge I should have put you through.
I agree. And we were just filming my intro video stuff for Miss Earth, and we were at the trying to remember it's the Bicentennial Tower at Presque Isle in Erie, Pennsylvania. And it's high. I don't know how high it is. It's not glass, but I was leaning against the railway to get some really pretty shots, and I was having to take some breaks and get through it. But my thing is like as long as I have something to grab and I'm looking into the camera and I'm thinking about modeling and I'm not thinking about the ground, we can do just fine.
I've flown a plane several times myself,
Really?
and it happened very, very oddly because I was I was on the tennis court coaching, and I happened to mention that one of the things I always wanted to do was learn how to fly because I was studying
Yes.
aeronautical engineering under this belief that I would get to fly planes. I later found out no, that's not the case. But someone overheard me,
Oh
the
no.
gardener of all people at the
Yeah.
school. This is like a really random thing. It's like this is why you treat everyone kindly. He overheard me saying that, and then I came off the court, and he said, "I heard you like flying." I said, "Yes." And he said, "I booked you a flying lesson." I was like, "What?" But it turns out he has a friend. That's one of those crazy situations where you don't really know what's going on. He has a friend, and his friend had an ex-Russian, like a Soviet fighter trainer. And normally when you start flying, you fly in a little thing that's like a Dyson fan in front of a glider, right? And you're fine. This thing was basically an engine with a seat attached to it. And we climb. So he's in it with me, obviously. We go up and he says, "Oh, I heard you like flying." I said, "Yes. I'm in the air, right? So you know what to do?" It's like, "Oh, kind of. Like I've seen it done." I said, "Okay, do a roll." And so, okay. So I pulled the stick back, and next thing, I think it was a barrel roll. So it flip over. Now I'm upside down. And you have to understand, Haley, I'm not afraid of heights, but this thing has a transparent cockpit. And you're strapped in. Think of like a 1980s seatbelt, right? That's the
Yeah.
only thing that's holding you in the seat. And
Oh
because you're not
no.
pulling a loop, you're literally hanging from the seat. Cockpit, which by the way is semi-open, I can tell because there's wind coming in, and below you is 10,000 feet of drop. Like
Mm.
you have time to
Mm.
contemplate the meaning of life as you fall down to your death. I'm not afraid of heights, but I
Yeah.
have to say, like I love flying. But when that was happening to me, I had a moment. Let's say, so I'm just saying, you should try that if you like conquering your fears, because it sounds like you are someone who goes, if I'm afraid of this, I'm going to do it. You should try that. Get someone, if your mum can do it, take you up, flip a plane upside down, and look at the floor. That That is like, I can't describe it.
Oh, that's insane. I don't know if you would catch me in a plane again after that one. That's a lot.
You look like you're having a moment to contemplate that. Would you ever go skydiving, or have you?
I've said no. I've said that I would never go skydiving, but like if I did the whole upside down plane experience, I think skydiving would look a little bit friendlier after that.
Oh, skydiving is easy. You have a parachute. If you
Easy.
fly out the plane, you don't have a parachute.
Okay, that's fair. I'll give you that.
I mean, skydiving, you know you're going to be fine at the end, all things considered. If I fly out the plane, something's gone terribly wrong. I will say humans are very strange. Like we're the only species that will get into a perfectly good plane and jump out of it. It's a
Yeah.
very human thing. I've had you on for ages, and I haven't yet asked you, how did you get into pageant? I haven't talked about pageantry.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us quickly how you got into pageantry to begin with?
Like most young teenage girls, I was dealing with some insecurity. And because my mom was a former pageant queen, we would watch Miss USA on TV every year. And it happened to be, I believe, the Miss Teen USA pageant in 2018 or so. And I looked at my mom and I said, I could do that. And she was like, really? You could do that? And I love a challenge. So I was like, actually, we are going to be doing that. So she signed me up for Miss Pennsylvania Teen USA and she coached me for it. And I placed third runner up on my first try. And I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. I've grown a
Wow.
lot through this experience. It was the first interview I'd ever given in my life. I was 16. It was split panel, 2 minutes each panel. And I was like, interviewing is kind of crazy. I don't know if I like that, but the rest of this was pretty easy. So I'll do another one. And I've been competing for about 6 years now. And I'm really proud to say that the interview component does not scare me anymore. So that's the main evolution for me. I actually won High Point Interview for Miss Earth USA. And I think I'm almost as proud of that as I am proud of winning the pageant because that's such a point of personal growth for me. Because I used to be like stressed out, shaking, sweaty before going into interview because I was afraid of saying the wrong thing. And at the end of the day, if you're telling the truth and you're being yourself and you've put the work in to be there,
Yeah.
there's no wrong thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's from going from someone who was afraid to use her voice to winning high point at interview. That's certainly a moment. Um, you said you love a challenge. I don't think I don't think you should say things like that. I will say, because you're on an interview which is being recorded, I will
Right.
say if you ever decide you're brave enough to take on a skydive,
Okay.
if you find one, I will pay for you to jump out of a plane.
You're joking.
No, because
You're joking.
I love the sound of this because people say stuff and I'm like, oh really? So if you really want a challenge and you're willing to do it, you find a place. I will pay for you to jump out of a plane. I've thrown pageant queen. I threw Miss Universe Great Britain out of a plane. So
Did you?
well, not literally. And I happened to be kicked out of the plane before she did.
That's
But
funny.
no, it would be. I mean, you need content, right? I mean, when you have a day off, rather than running to get rid of your feelings, just jump out a plane.
Okay. All right. I'll consider it. I'll consider it on the caveat that I do some indoor skydiving first. You know, like the I don't know how it works.
It's a
It
giant fan.
yeah.
You float over a
Those.
giant fan. A
Yeah,
fan.
I'd float over one of those and see how I felt about that and kind of get used to it. And then maybe I should go hang gliding. And then perhaps after that and a little bit more rock climbing, I'll be ready to jump out of the plane.
You know how they tell kids the best way to take a band-aid off is just to rip it off?
And I don't disagree when it's a band-aid.
What's the worst? Well, I don't think what's the worst thing that can happen. That's a
Have
really
a heart
good way.
attack. That's the worst thing that could happen. I went on the Tower of Terror in Hollywood studios and I screamed my head off for the entire, I don't know how many minutes I was in there because I felt like I was going to die. But I was actually having chest pains while I was in there and it was dropping me. And my family came out of there like, we can't hear anything because you broke our eardrums, Haley. And I was
You
like, I'm
you
very sorry.
you were probably having chest pains, not because you're having a heart attack, but because you were screaming for so long. You were causing your lungs to have some sort of spasm.
I think I can do both at the same time.
Well, that's not what when we say multitasking. That I will say there was an all this social media is not so good. there was I don't know why I got shown this. There was a TikTok of like one of those things that go around and around at a fun park, and I think it was in
Oh, I like
Italy or
this.
something, and the whole
Yeah.
thing just came off and just
No.
bang, and there were
Okay.
people, and it was like, oh, that's not. I see. I don't like being hung upside down on those. I get
Mhm.
really annoyed. It's like, what? Stop hanging me up here. Like, let's just get this over and done with. That's why I
Yeah.
prefer Skydive. Anyway, had many random tangents. Let's move towards the final 10 questions so I don't keep you on forever and a day. Just before we go to the final 10, is there anyone that you want to give thanks to or give a shout out to for supporting you along your journey?
Oh my gosh, so many people. I think I want to start with my mom for helping me along this journey because she's that person that's there every single day helping me get through, whether it's the stress of competing or planning and just kind of being my second brain while I'm getting through this. And then also Tom Brodeur for helping me with my evolution from, I believe, November of last year to now. He's been very instrumental in a lot of changes that have happened for me and helped me grow as a person and as a competitor. And just in general, my family, my dance teacher, my directors, it's been a really great experience so far. And I can't wait to take all of them with me to Miss Earth while I'm competing and I'm able to represent the USA, which is such an honor.
Remember when you said you loved running
Yeah,
and you said you like to get your feelings out? Was that what how you described it?
I think so. I think so. Fun fact, my mom was also an avid runner, so I'd go running with her when I was younger, and that was kind of how I got into that.
Okay, I
But
just remember what I wanted to ask you, ADHD
yeah,
brain. But
no
if you go
worries.
running out in public on a road and you're trying to get your feelings out, does that mean that no one should stop you because you'll be very like angry? Like,
No,
what feelings are you getting out? Is it stress?
no. Sometimes it's stress. It's usually like, okay, I have a lot going on. My blood pressure's a little bit higher today. I want to go get that out on the treadmill and then I'll feel calmer.
Fair enough.
But if I'm running in public, usually it's at Presque Isle, and Presque Isle has a lot of wildlife and natural
Oh,
elements that I like to record while I'm there. So I'll stop my run to pull out my camera and record a beaver or a crane and just get some cute footage and some moments that I get to look back on. So no, you can stop me during a run. I mean, I prefer that you didn't if I'm just really gunning it,
of
like
course.
very fast.
Don't get in your way and wave you down.
Freaking things
You won't
out.
appreciate it very much. All right, let's go through our final 10. So number
Okay.
one, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word. Hmm. I think growth, especially in pageantry, because I've always found butterflies very symbolic of the process for women going through this, where you start as one person and I feel like you end it as a very different person and always in a good way, where it's like I'm more confident, I can interview, I can take on the world in ways that I couldn't before.
I interviewed your predecessor, Marissa Butler, and
Yes.
she had a phobia of moths. I think it was a moth.
Oh,
No, ladybirds. You just reminded me when you said a butterfly, and she had a phobia of that because when she was young, one went up her nose and it never came back out.
oh, that's
So when
awful.
you said that, that's just what I was.
I
That's
had
just
a
what I was.
ladybug fly into my mouth when I was a kid, and that was a little traumatizing.
Did it come back out or did you swallow
Oh,
it?
oh, right. It came back out. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what the ladybirds are doing around in America. They're just flying up everyone's noses and into people's mouths. All right. Number two, what is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word. Hmm. Failure. I don't think you can fail at things. I think you either find success in what you do or you grow. So I think in any experience, even if you win the pageant, you're growing. So I don't like to hear failure, especially because the first time I competed and I didn't win, I actually sat down in the floor with my third runner-up award. And my mom was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I failed." And she told me that I did not fail because I had grown so much and I could come
Yeah,
back again and it was okay. So that's the word I don't like to hear in pageantry
yeah.
is failure.
Number three, in life, what gets you excited? What turns you on?
I love to run anything physical activity outdoors. So if I can be in nature and I can be running, if it's an obstacle course, I thought that was so cool that we did that on the show. And anyways, I can push myself, as you can see.
Have you ever played tennis?
No, actually, I would like to though. It looks fun.
Do you have the hand-eye coordination thing going on? Because I've worked with a lot of ballerinas and dancers, and they
It's
look really
questionable.
pretty and on point and elegant, but sometimes they get hit in the face with a ball. I'm just curious. Do you have the hand-eye thing going on?
I don't know. I think we might have to test that one, honestly.
Yeah, I'll take that
Dancers,
as a no.
yeah. My dance
Okay.
teacher always says we can be clumsy outside of dance, and we usually are a little bit clumsy.
Never understand that one. You're the second person in as many months to say that to me. She's also trained as a ballerina, and
Yeah,
she said she's really clumsy. I'm
you
like,
wouldn't think it.
no, and she's like 5'10", 5'11". I'm like, how can you dance so elegantly, go on point, and then you just walk into a door frame? Like, I
Right.
don't.
It
How does that
happens all the
happen?
time.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So if you're covered in bruises, it's because you randomly fell down a staircase or so.
Oh,
What's the most random, like, clumsy accident that you've ever had? Have you ever broken a bone or a toe or
oh no.
something?
No, I've never
No?
broken anything. I have walked into a lot of things for sure. I think it would be, I was just in my hotel room with Nikki in Miami and I did fully walk into the wall and she was like, "Are you good?" And I was like, "Yeah, this happens all the time. It's okay."
Did you not see it? Did the wall move suddenly, or what happened?
I was getting ready to go and I just wasn't paying attention. And I was there, the wall was there. I didn't realize it
And
and
you had a
there we
moment.
were. Yeah.
I think that might be the ADHD brain. Anyway, so that's what gets you excited. What about what turns you off?
Pollution. I think the most frustrating thing is to be driving down the road and to see trash because there's no reason for that. There's never a reason for that. If you have something you need to throw away and there isn't a trash can available to you, just take it with you. And that's something that Miss Earth Jessica Lane just posted about for World Beach Day yesterday because it's so frustrating as an environmentalist to go to a
Yeah.
beach or a park and to just see trash, especially if there is a trash can 10 feet away. That's what I'm always shocked by is just I don't know if it's laziness or just a lack of an understanding for, this is not okay. Animals will eat this. It's harmful to our animals and our environment and then to people ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to say in Australia, it's not generally a huge problem with people just throwing trash like on
It's
the
good.
side of a road.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it just comes down to a lack of care about other people. I think it's a very
Yeah.
selfish thing. You just,
Yeah.
oh, you got this thing. Oh, I can't be bothered throwing it over in the bin. I've never thrown any like rubbish out like that just
Yeah.
on the street because it just feels so wrong. Like, why would you do
Yes.
that? Just keep it on yourself until you can throw it away. Or why would you
Yeah.
throw it out the window? I don't understand.
Right.
Number five, what sound or noise do you love?
Oh, I love music. I listen to music all the time.
What's the best song to get someone running? Because I hate running, so I need some. You said the Spotify. What song do you run to?
Okay, there's a remix of Bass Down Low that will get your heart rate going very quickly. So if you're trying to sprint and really push yourself to go fast for a period of time, that is a good
Okay,
one. Or if you're having trouble getting started, that will also help. And in general, if you search anything that's 180 beats per minute, you can sync your pacing to the music and it'll help you stay on track.
that is such an ADHD thing to have worked out that you have the 180 beats per minute, you can sync your hand. That's so, that's so interesting. Okay, what sound or noise do you hate?
Hmm. Smoke detectors. That's really random. They're necessary, but when the batteries go out, yeah, it's a little stressful.
This you have a story, but like, has this happened to you, or you just hypothetically saying it would be a bad idea?
Well, I did grow up in Alabama, so we had a lot of tornado drills and the tornado
Oh,
sirens as
okay.
well. So any sort of siren, whether it's for fire or for a tornado, kind of gets me a little stressed, especially because the summer before I moved here from Alabama, we had an F5 tornado pass through our neighborhood and it was pretty devastating, but the roof was pretty much taken off of our house. And I remember the sound of that happening. I was 8 or 9, I think. And yeah, alarm sounds, whether it's like a siren or a smoke detector, are not my favorite.
In some of those tornadoes and hurricanes and
Yeah,
cyclones that you guys have, and I'm not scared of heights, but I am scared of those things because they're
for
so
sure.
massive and they're so destructive. I can't imagine what that'd be like. Number seven, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Teleportation. I want to go everywhere.
Literally, how many countries have you been to?
I've been to three because I live in the USA. I'm right next to Canada, and Puerto Rico is a territory, but I'm counting it as another country. And then I'll be going to the Philippines. So very excited about that.
Get your passport ready and start wearing it out. That's what I say.
Absolutely.
Number 8, what job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
I would love to be a chef. I love to cook, and if I were not going to medical school, I would want to be a professional chef.
Are you any good at it?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, I can bake.
You can-
And
So
I
this must
can,
work well with the whole not eating sugar thing, the
right?
baking thing.
Right. I love a from scratch recipe at the holidays. There's this mint cookie thing I like to make that's like a fudge situation that has a filling that's fantastic. It takes me about 4 hours to do it though. So I don't do that very frequently, but I also love to cook. So yeah, that's always fun for meal prepping too as a pageant girl because I actually enjoy the process.
You're just reminding me that you said somewhere that you love candles. Was that on your vlog?
Oh man. I think that
Where
was
did
in
I
one of
see
my
it?
vlogs. That was my Missouri vlog because they gifted
Was
us
it?
a candle for judging
That's
because
right.
it's in America. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Number 9, what job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Oh man. Hmm. That's tough. That's really, really tough. I wouldn't want to be a mortician. That one feels obvious, but I wouldn't want to do that. Or, those people that travel to schools with exotic animals and they usually have like tarantulas with them? I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do that either. I really dislike spiders. And I was doing some research on the Philippines because it occurred to me that there would be different venomous animals there than I have here. And I looked at every species of tarantula that they have naturally in the Philippines. And they have this thing called the tangerine tarantula, which can reach speeds of up to like 140 miles an hour when it's attacking something. And it can sustain speeds of 6 miles an hour, which is too fast. Okay. And it's big and it's orange. And I think it's known for being the fastest spider in the world. But I was like, no way, a smoke detector.
There's
The timing of that is insane. But yeah,
not a fire there, is there? Or a tornado coming?
no, someone's probably cooking upstairs, honestly.
It's okay. We can barely hear it. But I need to, is this the reason why you practice running in sprints so you can outrun this spider?
Lately, yes.
Now that I know that you're afraid of spiders, there's a video I have to send you. And when I send
No.
it to you, you'll probably never want to ever speak to me again. Let's just. There was also a video of a guy who was scared of spiders and he ate a
Mhm.
tarantula because people, they can be eaten like as a delicacy.
Disgusting.
So you dry them out, put salt on it, and he takes it out, and he's so scared of it because when it lands on his hand, he goes like this. It's dead, obviously, and he drops it, and because it's dry, it goes into different pieces. And he's
Yeah.
in a Prius, which is quite funny. It's like this nerdy little guy in a Prius trying to eat this tarantula, and he's screaming. And then he picks up the body and he puts it in his mouth and he bites into it, and it's kind of like
Oh,
gooey, slimy on the inside.
yeah.
Well, you said you like a challenge. What about that?
I don't think that one's gonna happen. I might take you up on the skydiving, but I'm not gonna eat a tarantula. Okay, I appreciate
We're,
the idea though.
we're ranking Haley Poe's phobias. We're finding out
Yes.
what's the worst. I mean, I did say it's not a good idea to say you like a challenge. Anyway, final question: if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh wow. Hmm. It's a really good question. I've never thought about that. I guess I would take an I'm proud of you because sometimes it's hard to be proud of yourself no matter how much work you put into something. And I think at the end of the day, it would be good to hear that I did things right.
That would be a nice thing to hear, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, before your place burns down, because apparently there's a fire or tornado coming,
The smoke detector went off. I think we're in the clear.
it's just like perfect timing, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak
Absolutely.
with us, and best of luck over at Miss Earth.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me to chat about everything pageant to microplastics to eating spiders. This has been very unique and I've loved it. Thank you.
I feel that I've just spent the hour and a half trying to find out what you're most scared of and then saying, do it, do it, do it, do it. I'm not always like that, but as you said, you love a challenge.
That's okay. I set myself up.
You did. So thank you for that. I'll
Yeah.
keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang out with the audience. But thanks to everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.